Hello, my name is Andrew Comer. Today is the 17th of June 2020, and this is the next video in the ProAct series. Today I'll be talking to you about online terms of trade. So once you've decided to trade online, you should give serious thought to having an appropriate set of terms of trade in place. Ideally, they should be easily accessible at all times to anyone who is visiting and using your website. Terms of trade are the basis on which suppliers and customers agree to do business. They set out each party's expectations, rights, and obligations regarding the supply of goods or services. For suppliers, they're a risk management tool. They allow suppliers to limit exposure to liability. And for customers, they provide clarity and certainty around the trading process. One important note: terms of trade contain the general or standard terms and conditions of an agreement between supplier and customer. The specific terms and conditions of an agreement, for example, the parties' names, description of the goods or services being supplied, and the price payable, will usually be contained in a separate document, such as an invoice or a purchase order or an application form. So this video will set out some of the key things that you need to be thinking about when putting together your online terms of trade. So there are a number of fundamental matters which your terms of trade should include as a bare minimum, and they include the following concepts. So ordering: how does the customer go about ordering the goods or services, if not through the website? Price: when and how must payment be made? Is there a discount for early payment? Is there a penalty for late payment? Liability: is the party's liability under the contract limited? And if yes, how is it limited? Disputes: how are disputes resolved between the parties? Is there a specific process that needs to be followed? Do the parties need to enter into discussions? Do they have to partake in mediation or arbitration? Termination: who can terminate the agreement and on what basis? And also the website: are there any conditions in using the website even if you don't place an order? It's also worth thinking about whether the customer can purchase through an app or social media, in which case the term online system or something similar should be probably used instead of the term website. Suppliers of goods have a number of additional considerations to think about when crafting terms of trade, and they include the following. Delivery: how, where, and when are the goods to be delivered, and who's responsible for delivery costs? Risk and title: when does risk in and title to the goods pass to the customer? This will have implications for the parties' insurance arrangements. Security: what kind of security, if any, is the supplier taking to secure payment for the goods? A supplier will likely want to take a security interest over goods supplied and the proceeds of their sale, and in some cases over the customer's personal property. And the supplier should register a financing statement on the Personal Property Securities Register to perfect that security interest. And finally, what are the business's policies regarding returns or refunds for damaged or incorrectly supplied goods? Parties should always remember that to be enforceable, the customer must be aware of the supplier's terms of trade, and the customer must also agree to or accept them. These concepts are discussed in depth in a separate ProAct article covering the basics of contract law, and it's something that's often overlooked, but essential that every business understands. Suppliers should also consider whether their terms should specifically excuse performance because of unforeseen events, for example, strikes or natural disasters, or because of a foreseeable event, for example, COVID-19, and how liability is apportioned between the supplier and customer in those circumstances. And finally, the supplier needs to be mindful of consumer protection and privacy laws, among many others. So some legislation like the Fair Trading Act needs to be followed whether supplying to business or individuals. If supplying to individuals as opposed to businesses, suppliers should also be mindful of their obligations under the Consumer Guarantees Act and the Privacy Act. Again, these laws are discussed in depth in a separate ProAct article, but to summarise, the Fair Trading Act protects purchasers against being misled or being treated unfairly. It effectively prohibits businesses from misleading or deceptive conduct, making false representations, using unfair contract terms, and employing unfair practices. And this Act covers claims about products and services before they're purchased. Then we have the Consumer Guarantees Act. This statute implies a series of statutory guarantees for goods or services ordinarily purchased for personal, domestic, or household use. Among other things, they include guarantees of acceptable quality, fitness for purpose, and reasonableness of price. And this Act covers claims about products and services after they're purchased. And finally, the Privacy Act. If a business collects personal information, that's information about an identifiable individual, in the course of its business, it must abide by the requirements under the Privacy Act in relation to the collection, use, disclosure, storage, and access to such information. So this is just a snapshot of just some of the general things associated with online terms of trade. If you need any help or guidance with your terms of trade, please feel free to contact us. Thank you.